Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Card Advantage podcast. It is September 21st at 9:28 p.m. I am Jeff, and that is Bunk. What is going on, Bunk?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. We have resolved our audio issues that we've had over the last few weeks, so hopefully everything is coming in crystal clear. We're going to start out taking care of some Sports Card Advantage podcast business. First and foremost, since the Fantasy Football League, unfortunately, did not get off the ground, we're going to try to go for a Fantasy Basketball League. And should be a pretty easy layup, pun intended, on that one for you guys as far as winning, since Bunk and I know next to nothing about basketball. So, same rules apply. We're going to have a 10 or 12 team league, depending on how many people are interested. And we're going to throw up a card, probably a PSA 10 slab that's worth $200 to $300 as the prize. Whoever wins the league will take the prize. Send us an email, info@sportscardadvantage.com, and the first 10 or 12 people that send us an email will be guaranteed a spot. And then for this week, we will do the secret card giveaway right here at the top of the show. And Bunk, give me a number between 1 and 10.
6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Aiden M. Aiden M, you are the winner. We will reach out to you by email and get your address, and then we will send out the card. Once again, anybody who wants to get any questions on the podcast, send us an email, info@sportscardadvantage.com. Follow us on social media, SportsCardADVTG. We have some content that we're going to be rolling out this week more regularly on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter. So, definitely start following us and get engaged. And then this week's secret card choices, we're mixing it up a little bit here. We have some football and some potential playoff baseball. 2020 Panini Mosaic Jimmy Garoppolo Stained Glass is choice number 1. 2017 Bowman Chrome Cody Bellinger PSA 10 is number 2. And 2017 Joe Adele Bowman Draft PSA 10 is number 3. For those of you that are new, our secret card is you just send us an email, info@sportscardadvantage.com, with which card that you would like, and we will do a random drawing next week to see who wins. Any other podcast business you would like to address?
No, I'm just sitting here patiently, sir.
I'm surprised I didn't get any shit for my layup joke.
It was bad, but I just let it marinate into everyone's ears.
Yeah,
and they all mocked you.
I figured as much. All right, so let's move on to today's main event. We have an interesting topic of conversation, as always. The topic of grading companies. It's something that it seems like everybody has their main go-to, the one that they ride for, their Coke or their Pepsi type of thing. You're a PSA, you're a BGS. Some people ride for SGC or HGA. So we want to talk about what happens when PSA, the 800-pound gorilla, gets their prices back down into a range that's going to be competitive with the HGA, SGCs of the world, and also when BGS opens back up. What happens to these companies? So I'll throw the floor to you here to start us off as far as, the rumors are in the next 6 to 8 weeks, PSA is going, open up a $100 tier, and then Q1 of 2022, they're going to open up a $50 tier. And then the thought is that's it. That's as low as they're going to go, and that's where they're going to cap it. But $50 is close enough to the $30 SGC as far as the price is concerned and the value is concerned, that there should be a no-brainer if you're worried about value. So what happens to SGC, HGA, CSG, and RC fucking whatever, and all these other, pop-up shop, grading companies? What happens to them when PSA goes back to a $50 entry?
Yeah, it's going to get real interesting. I mean, you bring the bottom line is, what do cards sell for in the slab they're in? That's the main decision here. Everyone's got to make when they're looking at where to grade. Right now, PSA and Beckett are so high, it's pricing a lot of people out, depending on the card. I definitely think there is a market for certain cards just to have them slab that are potentially worth the price point at SGC and HGA, depending on what and some of these other companies, depending on what your goal is. I mean, are you looking to make money on it? Or are you just looking to slab it forever and have a grade on it? But I think that the bottom line is, people are going to look at the resale values, and we could discuss all the reasons why PSA has the better resale on all these cards. But for $50, people are going to PSA. I have a feeling there's going to be a significant drop off in the volume going to all these other companies.
Yeah, I mean, and then the window on those quote unquote cards gets very, very small, as far as like if the card is a base card that's raw worth, $10, and you want it back quickly, then, yes, you potentially can still send it to SGC. But otherwise, I don't see any other reason to send anything to any of these other companies other than PSAs, especially since, based on what the research and stuff that we've done, I mean, PSA is always more than $20 more than the other companies.
20. I mean, they're way above. And
well, I mean,
you're talking about on your low end stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because your price difference is going to be, if PSA goes to a $50 price point, and SGC costs $30, that's a $20 difference. I mean, in HGA also is $25 or $30, depending if you have custom slabs or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the people that got into, that first started getting grading in volume after the PSA and BGS shutdowns. Whether they kind of fell in love with HGA or SGC just because the turnaround wasn't bad and the price was good and you're getting cards slabbed for the first time. But then when you go to sell them and you keep looking at these comps at PSA, you're like, oh man, why didn't I wait?
Well, yeah, I mean, just a perfect example is a card that we're, closely watching ourselves because, we have one, and, we want to see what the value closes. I mean, right now it's we're looking at 2017 Patrick Mahomes Optic Hollow. We have a PSA 10 of that. There's an SGC 10 of it closing in the next few hours, and, it's at $1,400 right now. And, the PSA 10 last three to closed at $4,650. So, I mean, you're talking, even if this thing closes for another $1,000, you're still going to be talking $2,000 difference between SGC and PSA, which is insane.
Right. And I guarantee you the person buying the SGC Mahomes is cracking it and sending it to PSA immediately.
Yeah, it may be us.
Nah.
I mean, we're definitely going to keep an eye on it. If that thing isn't going to get over 2,500, I would buy that in a heartbeat and take the risk, because, at this point it's $150 risk, because even if it gets a 9 will close at somewhere between 22 and 2,600. So we may take a little bit of a loss, but it's a $2,000 potential gain. And, I think SGC will still have a place in the grading space. I think they've grown enough and they've gotten enough people that like their service, that like the fast turnaround, that like, a little bit more of a personal element that they get from PSA. But I think it's going to be, continue to be vintage, which they've excelled at, and then, very low end base stuff. Otherwise, I don't see them getting anywhere near the volume. And I think HGA and, CSG and any of these other little fly-by-nights, I think those are all gone. I mean, there's no reason for them at that point.
No. PSA gets down to $50. There's going to be almost, I would imagine, nothing going to those companies.
But then I guess that question then becomes, do we see these grading pops pop back up again because it's actually affordable to send to PSA, and does that dilute the value of PSA?
Has it before?
That's a good point. I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it has in certain years. I mean, look at the 2018 Soto rookie cards, PSA 9s and 10. I mean, those numbers are getting so high. Those PSA 10 Sotos are very affordable right now.
Yeah, I mean the one that I know off the top of my head is the Acuna. Some of the 2018 Acuna's you're looking at between 18 and 20K for PSA 10s. But at that, I mean, I guess. I mean, if you have a card, what are those raw? Like, what do those go for raw? 50, $60?
Yeah, like the Soto paper base update. Yeah, they're like $40 right now, 40, $50 maybe, off the top of my head.
Yeah, so if those are going for 40 or $50 raw, are you paying $50 to get it graded for a card that'll be worth $150? Yeah, probably. I mean, at that point, it becomes worth it, and then at that point, things get flooded again. So it's gonna yo-yo. I think over the next 12 months, this whole grading landscape of companies and everything else is definitely going to go through another iteration of settling and seeing who's left. But I would make a prediction by the end of 2022 that we're probably at 3 or 4 grading companies total, and all the rest of the others fall by the wayside. I think they'll be distant memories.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how these other companies respond. PSA goes down to 50. I mean, listen, there's still a place for certain cards to go to certain companies. I mean, I'm not going to take a high-end $1,000 card at this point and send it anywhere except Beckett or PSA. But there's a lot of other cards, I suppose, that I'm okay with another grading. If I'm keeping it in the PC or something like that, and I just want it slabbed, and I'm not concerned 10 years from now what I'm selling it for, or I think it'll still command at least something close to what it should get in another slab.
I mean,
Uh,
unless you're putting it on the wall, or putting it out for display, so then you potentially look at it like an HGA slab, or if you like the quote unquote tuxedo look, then, but why else? I mean, 10 years down the road, you never know. I mean, the way I look at it is 10 years down the road, I never know. Maybe I need the money. And if it's in an HGA slab and they don't exist 10 years from now, then the card, what's the card worth at that point?
yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I'm trying to make an argument for both sides here. I get why PSA at $50 is going to be the go-to.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
There's going to be few and few cards that fit the model I'm trying to suggest of why you still may send to HGA and SGC and CSG, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely that volume it comes down, because at that point you're going to run the numbers. You're going to say, yeah, for the extra $20, I'm just going to send it to PSA.
Yeah, but I guess there are a couple crazies out there. We saw some blasphemous cards over the last couple of weeks of people that sent cards to HGA. One was a 2018 gold Russell Wilson Kaboom that somebody sent to HGA. I mean, the slab looked awesome, but I mean, that card is worth half of what it would be in a PSA 10 slab. And then the other one was the Joe Burrow gold, which, somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 30 or 40 grand. So, those types of cards, and that's a question. In 10 years, is HGA still here? And if you have a card sitting in an HGA slab, is it worth, it's worth what it is raw, because that's what somebody can buy it and crack it.
But that gold, I mean, that Russell Wilson card, it's such a nice, rare card. Well, I mean, what's the driving price difference? Why PSA? Do people actually think it's a better graded card?
In certain cases,
what is the goal? Like, I prefer knowing that the card in the slab is in better condition than someone else's card. So is it just the thin slab and the plain label and the fact that it says 10 on PSA versus something else? Like, what's the driving force there?
I think that certain people just trust PSA more, as far as their grading. I don't even know. I guess that the people that are doing the grading, they trust them that they're going to authenticate it. They trust them that that there's going to be more. What's the word I'm looking for? That they're actually going to be more accurate with the grade than people at HGA. I mean, and it's not my opinion, but obviously we know somebody in particular that we're talking about here that has zero respect for HGA and zero trust in them, and feels that they were liars, quote unquote, since the beginning, and don't want to send anything to them no matter what. And so there are those people out there, but I don't know. I mean, I think for the time being, they all have a place, but I think 6 months from now, when normal prices come back, or PSA has that 3 month, $50 price point, that HGA becomes just a novelty, and I think that they will eventually disappear.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too is, and myself included, because I didn't want to send to PSA Beckett when it was that high at the time, when I was first getting into sending stuff off finally. Uh, if you sent cards to HGA and SGC, for example, that are better cards, and all of a sudden you getting these back, and you start realizing you're not getting what you thought you were going to get for this card based on PSA and Beckett comps, that's going to significantly turn you off.
Yeah, and that's definitely happening right now. So, I think that we're definitely not done as far as this whole thing shaking out. And I think that, people, the vacuum that PSA and BGS left when they both basically were shut down was filled. People saw an opportunity and they jumped on it, which is fine. But I just think that eventually that is going to dissipate, and we'll be left with basically probably 90% of stuff that's going to be graded will be graded by PSA, BGS, and SGC.
But where the hell's BGS? Where the hell's Beckett right now? I can't even tell you Beckett's going to grade a card anytime soon.
Yeah,
at a lower price point.
The statement that was made at the Beckett Industry Summit in Vegas last week was that they are still 12 months away from clearing their backlog, which seems to me to be ridiculous. PSA probably had a 10x backlog than they did, and as far as I know, they're pretty close to getting past that backlog. I think they have that number on their website. Last time we checked, it was in the 80s. As far as the percentage of backlog clear, and Beckett seems to be trailing way behind. So who knows? Maybe they get left in the dust and it becomes just a PSA for high end and SGC for low end or vintage, and that's the primary grading companies if Beckett doesn't get their shit together.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to see how they're going to evolve, and I got to throw Beckett in that category. How is Beckett, HGA, SGC, and all the other ones? How are they going to evolve as PSA comes down and to market themselves?
Yeah, I mean,
why you should still send cards to them?
Something is going to affect this market, and something will shake it up. And supposedly, quote unquote, HGA is finally releasing their AI technology in the next 10 days, according to their most recent announcement. So we'll see what that actually is for the second time around.
Have they been using it?
I don't know. I mean,
when they first came out, people were pissed because they said, "Oh, we're using this cool AI technology," and then they showed you the video of that huge scanner they use, that high resolution scanner, and then that was supposedly the AI.
So, well, they have some other large demonstration that's going to be coming out in the next 10 days, which is supposedly this revolutionary technology. So they've been talking about patents and all this other shit, and it's gonna go one of two ways. If it's a bust and a fizzle, then they're going to lose even more market share, and their path out of this space will be even faster. But if it is eye-opening, then it may be interesting to see what they're bringing to the table, or so PSA just buys them and takes the technology, something along those lines. We'll see. All right, we don't need to spend any more time on this. We'll continue to do updates on the grading companies, and then bring back Slab Wars probably next week or the week after with some more updates, and continue to keep you guys up to date on price comparisons between these. Some fun and exciting news: the Sports Card Advantage podcast going on a little field trip coming up this weekend. We will be attending.
I'm leaving the house. Leaving the house.
And the crazy hermit is actually making an exit into the real world. We are going to the Philly show, so we'll try to record some videos and get some negotiations and other stuff in there. We'll definitely show you what we wound up with. Probably combine it. I actually personally attended the Raleigh show last week, picked up somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 or 12 pieces. Some interesting stuff. Shows are definitely a great place to make deals, especially smaller local shows. I felt I ran into two different dealers. Either guys that were like basically guys like us that, we're like, yeah, me and my friends put some stuff together and we're just trying to sell it at the show. And those guys are usually willing to deal. I made a deal with one guy where I bought 5 cards. The total comps on the cards was probably $450. I got it for $300. It was a nice pickup. And he basically was like, yeah, me and 4 friends, we split the table and we all just threw our cards in the case. And then you have the other old curmudgeon type guys that are basically like, fuck eBay comps. These are my prices. And, they don't realize that, their prices are 2x what the actual current comps are. And, there's no point in dealing with them. So
you got to realize too, a lot of people are in for a lot more.
Yeah.
Than you realize, and they just can't cut ties.
Yeah, which is fine. Those just don't waste your time. There's one guy I was dealing with. He had a 2017 McCaffrey rookie PSA 10 that his price was literally 2x. What the last 3 or 4 sales were, and I literally showed him my phone. Was like, hey, he literally said to me, I don't give a fuck what the eBay comps say. This is my price. So I said, okay, have a nice day. And I walked away.
Right. You see that all the time on Twitter, Facebook, Discords. People just don't care. And they're waiting for an idiot or a fool to buy it.
Well,
that is I truly believe that is people's mindsets when they list stuff that high.
With that, we'll segue into a quick funny story before we get into the investments of the week. Speaking of idiots, I will fully admit I am an idiot.
Oh boy, you admitting this on live?
I'm gonna admit this on the podcast. We try to give you guys as much good advice as we possibly can, and tell you guys to do your homework, and I've literally beaten that into everybody's heads. And unfortunately, sometimes you get a little bit too excited about something and you don't pay attention. So I recently purchased what I thought was a 2015 Devin Booker Prism Silver card. And for those of you that don't know, I mean, the grading comps on this are fantastic in comparison with the raw price. So the raw price typically goes for $400 to $450. PSA 9s go for $1,200. PSA 10s usually go for $3,500 to $4,000. So Bunk and I have been chasing this card to try to find one, consistently looking forward to find one that's in good shape, that we can get graded so we can flip it and make some money. So I saw it. I did not consult with Bunk, which I normally do. Normally he looks at everything before we buy it, and I saw buy it now offer on what I thought was a silver, so I went ahead and made the purchase, and it came in the mail yesterday, and Bunk opened it and he goes, this is definitely not a silver. And I said fuck, and I went back to the eBay auction because I honestly I went by the picture, and it must have been the angle or something, and it looked shiny and silvery in the picture, and I didn't even read the description. And lo and behold, there was no silver in the description. So if you go to Card Ladder or any other pricing comps and you see the $350 2015 Devin Booker,
it's already there. I looked.
Yeah, if you see the 2015 base card for Devin Booker Prism at $350, that's me. Yeah, I'm the asshole. And lesson learned, it will never happen again. But figured I'd share with everybody. Human, you make make mistakes from time to time. So that was my, basically $220 mistake for the Booker.
Well, there was some writing on the wall here because remember the week before you were going to be tied up, so I was following some auctions ending, and this is another pro tip here. In some of those Panini cards, they all have the silver background, right? The silver color, not the actual parallel. And people put silver in the title all the time, even though it's not a silver. So you had came out of your party or whatever. You're like, man, why didn't you buy that Tua Optic Hollow for $18? Like, what's wrong with you? I go, dude, it's a base card.
Yeah. Yep. So
but it says silver in the title, and it was on our watch list.
Yeah. So
you gotta be careful.
You definitely, once again, make sure you read everything and/or try to have somebody else as a second pair of eyes. Because there's definitely times where I'll see stuff that Bunk doesn't see, or Bunk will see stuff that I don't see, either on condition or on the card or whatever else. More often than not, it's Bunk seeing things that I don't see, but.
Because I read the descriptions.
Yes, you do read the description.
First thing I do in any eBay listing, I look at the seller feedback and I read the description, and then I decide where I'm going from there.
Yeah, and I did not even bother to read the description. I just literally went by the picture, and the quote of this, as we'll close it, as Bunk said to me yesterday, we figured out that it was not a silver, is the seller probably broke his leg trying to get to his computer fast enough to hit the accept button on your offer, which probably sounds about right.
We should have him on the podcast.
Yeah, well I'll see if I
send him a message.
I'll see if I can track him down. I mean, because we email, like, the idiocy of this is we literally emailed back and forth on the condition of the card, because the top loader was scratched and I was concerned about the surface. So I was like, hey, can you take some pictures of the card outside the thing? And outside the top loader. He's like, the surface of the card is in immaculate condition. It's perfect. So I was like, all right, done. Let me throw my bid in here, and I had four or five opportunities to read it, and I didn't. So lesson learned. Let that be a lesson to everybody else. Don't get too excited about whatever you see. Make sure you read things and evaluate it before you buy it. And with that being said, let me give you some investment advice for this week.
As people close their phones.
As you turn off the podcast. We do have some cards that we want to take a look at this week. Week 2 NFL in the books. And then also coming up over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a couple more interviews, and we'll be starting to talk basketball. We are going to bring Kenneth Fornos back. He was very well received, and Kenneth knows a ton about basketball. I actually saw him in person this weekend at the Raleigh show, and he's going to come back on and talk some basketball previews sometime in the next couple of weeks. Preseason starts first week of October. So we definitely want to get you guys ready for that. But for the time being, we are talking football. First and foremost, we'll talk just a general investment, then a couple of lottery tickets for you guys, and then I'm gonna let Bunk loose here a little bit on Dr. Bunk, and talking about a couple of players who are hurt and a couple of guys who we feel that you should dump out of your collection. So let me bring up some card ladder. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about Derrick Henry. For those of you that have live under a rock, Derrick Henry, when all is said and done, could finish as a top 3, top 5 running back of all time. His rookie cards are 2016. We'll look at the Prism Silvers from 2016. There were no base cards that year. PSA 10s are a little bit pricey at $450, but if you have it, population is 139 on these. PSA 9s definitely more affordable. These are going for between 130 to 160. Pops less than 300. Henry seems to get better every year. First 2 weeks of the season, he's leading the league pretty much in rushing and touchdowns. He's just an animal. Like, he's an absolute beast on the field, and if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he could be regarded as a top 5 running back of all time. So for $160 to buy his PSA 9, or for $450 to buy his PSA 10 to put it away for a while, this definitely is something that I would look at as long-term hold. Because I don't foresee any large population jumps going forward. I don't think that people are going to get their hands on a whole bunch of 2016 raws that are going to grade out well. So I would have to say that the pops stay low, and if he keeps playing the way he's playing, I think that it's a no-brainer as far as future value.
How many 9s are there?
288 9s and 139 10s.
Okay, so the gem rate's not crazy on that.
Nope. The 10s have gotten as high as 800 over the last few years, and the 9s have gotten as high as 250. But I think it's a long-term hold.
Yeah, because again, he's someone who's so far, he fits the mold of that person I tell you about. He's 5-6 years into his career, and people, he's he's awesome, he's good, but the card just kind of stays stagnant.
Yeah, but if you look at his stats, 2,000 yards last year, 1,500 yards in 2019, 1,000 yards plus in 2018, and then the first few years of his career, he was platooning and whatever else, but as soon as he got to start, he has 6,000 yards in his 6 seasons. So he's averaging that. Last year he had 17 touchdowns, the year before 16, year before that 12. So, he's going to be a guy that is 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns for the duration, provided he's healthy. And he hasn't missed games for the most part. So I just think that he's somebody that, when all is said and done, if he keeps up the pace that he's at, he's potentially regarded as a top 5 running back of all time.
You might not see it for a year, but I know in August a raw card review BGS 9.5 only went for $160. So you can get your hands on one of those. That's a nice pickup.
Yeah, anything in the PSA 9, BGS 9.5, PSA 10, whatever you got the money for, I think it's a no-brainer as far as stuff that will increase in value over the years. His level of play warrants that card will go up. So now we're going to talk about a couple of overreactions and potential lottery tickets. So everybody's jumping on the Taylor Heineke bandwagon.
They are?
What'd you say?
I said they are?
Have you looked at what some of his cards are selling for on eBay?
No, because it's Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, well, some of his rookie autos are selling for $700 to $800.
Get out of here.
Yep. If you go on eBay and you look at some of the completed auctions, or you go on 130 and you type in Taylor Heineke autos, there's 2 that I saw. One sold for $700, the other one sold for $800. Granted, they're low numbered Prism autos, but it's Taylor Heineke, as you said. Yes, he did come in for Fitzpatrick and play decent, but I think that is an extreme overreaction.
He's 28 years old.
Well, there you go. But yes, I think it's an overreaction. I think if people are reaching for these, I think you're going to wind up regretting it and holding the bag.
Holy cow. Even as a quick flip, I wouldn't touch that.
No. If you were going to try for the quick flip, then you wanted to be in on him, 6 months ago. 6 months ago, those things were going for $50 because he looked okay, somewhat kind of decent last year. But once they brought in Fitzpatrick, his stuff tumbled, and you wanted to be in on that stuff in March.
Maybe I'll pick up some Chase Daniels.
Is
he still in the league?
I think he's still a backup somewhere. He is like the most lucrative backup of all time, as far as
for the number of snaps
per
he's
snap.
actually played.
Yeah, that's the stat on him.
Good life.
The next interesting lottery ticket is Davis Mills. Davis Mills is going to be playing quarterback for the Texans, even though the Texans are god awful. Tyrod
They're
had
scoring some points.
Yeah, they're scoring some points, and they're not as bad as we've made them out to be, and everybody else, but they're still not good. Nico Collins is hurt, and so he was one of their only basically two wide receivers. But Davis Mills stuff is very cheap. You can pick up some of his RPAs for less than $50. He is a rookie this year, so there is not that much product on him as of yet. But there's definitely a couple pieces out there if you want to take a shot at it. He's going to be playing for Tyrod for the next 4 weeks. It could be a Herbert situation like last year where Tyrod was going to be the starter and then Tyrod got hurt. And then, the rookie came in and played well, and that was the end of that. Davis Mills is a third-round pick, so you never know. So if you
Stanford boy, though. Stanford.
Yep. So if you want to take a shot, you want a lottery ticket in the quarterback market, then look at some Davis Mills stuff. You can get it cheap.
Yeah, I think the window here is super small. This is not something we're picking up at the show this weekend raw, sending it out, and hoping for the best.
Nope.
I'd pick up a couple pieces now or buy a lot now, and then hopefully blows it up a couple weeks here. Has a hot week, and you put it up immediately.
Yeah, they're playing the Panthers on Thursday night.
Ugh.
So if he comes in and has any kind of decent game, if you get it now and he comes in and has any kind of decent game, dump it immediately. That's the type of thing where if you buy 4 or 5 pieces, sell off all but one and hold that one just in case it does turn into a Herbert situation. But Herbert was a first-round pick, top 10. Davis Mills went in the 3rd round to the Texans. There's definitely a difference there. But just don't get sucked into the hype. Some trains that have already left the station that we're recommending staying away from. We've already talked about Kyler the last couple weeks. He came in and crushed it again. His stuff is up over 50% in the last 2 weeks. It's approaching its all-time highs. In certain respects, in certain cards. So I would basically wait until the hot streak ends, and eventually his stuff will fizzle and come back down to earth a little bit. He'll have a bad game or whatever it is, and people will dump. So I think there'll be other opportunities to get in on Kyler.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, or we get another year of data of his highs and lows, and in the off season, you maybe look to pounce.
Yep, but for right now, I would stay away from Kyler. Also, staying away from Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's stuff is at all-time highs right now. There was a lot of hype on Darnold coming into the season. Since he was going to be in a new situation, new coach, new team. People had high hopes for him, so the hype on him and the buying on him started before the season even started. And now that he's come in and actually looked decent, people think that he's going to live up to the 3rd overall pick that he was. So his stuff is literally sitting at some all-time highs. I wouldn't touch it. Eventually, also, it will come down. And then we saw Jameis Winston come way back down to earth. 5 touchdowns week 1.
Hopefully you don't have any left and you already sold them.
Yeah, hopefully he dumped all your Jameis after week 1. But if you're holding any of it, last week he looked like Jameis. He didn't have a great game. He threw some interceptions. Saints lost. So definitely seems like it's not going to be the fairy tale that everybody thought it was going to be. With that being said, I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Bunk and let him rant and rave a little bit here. I know that he has some words for Tua. I will mea culpa on Tua as well. We definitely been pushing it, or I have been pushing it a little bit, but I know that Dr. Bunk's about to let his opinions fly here about what he thinks of Tua and his long-term ability to be on the field.
No, it was going to be a worse rant when I keep leaning into the mic. It was going to be a worse rant when I first read he was carted off. I automatically assumed that meant it was a lower body injury, and if he had another, the hip injury was bad enough. if he had another lower body injury, then there's just no way this guy it's going to last in the league. But
Yeah.
bruised ribs, okay, whatever. The bruised ribs. This is going to be purely a pain tolerance thing. We'll learn a lot about Tua in the next week here. If he's going to play or not, that'll be pretty telling. I mean, I don't know what the data is off the top of my head of people that miss with bruised ribs, but if he's in a tremendous amount of pain and he's going to go out in the first quarter, the first hit he takes, he might take the week off here, but who knows? So I was going to, some of these guys, we talk about it, they're just injury prone. And now they're just now the list is just mounting up on Tua here.
I mean,
but at least it has nothing to do with his legs or his arm. So I'm not ready to cut bait on him or tell you you're an idiot for Tua yet. I still think there's too much hype around him in Miami and with Dolphin fans.
His cars are getting absolutely destroyed, though. I mean, they're just the downward arrow just continues to go down. I think if he would have came in week 1 and him versus Mac Jones and it would have been a shootout and et cetera, people would have gotten back on the hype train. But I think people had already slowly started to exit the hype train last year when he got hurt, and I think that people are just continuing to get off and people are just continuing to sell. So,
well, which also could be an opportunity because he's coming down all-time lows. Definitely could be opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, and I would give it time. I've been blowing the Tua horn here for the last whatever, because his stuff was so cheap and he was so hyped last year, but it does not seem like he's there yet, based on the first couple of weeks. Week 1, he did not look great. He had 150 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Last week, he didn't look fantastic either before he went out. He has weapons. Unfortunately, I bought the hype and, just something. Normally, we're pretty decent, but for this one, definitely not. His silver raws are down around like $70, and his stuff is just continuing to fall. So I would use caution with Tua. Granted, if he comes back and has a couple of games, I think people will jump back in on it. But for the time,
it's still early. He's still going to be able to ride a little bit of a hype train here. I can't imagine it's over yet for him.
We shall see. But use caution with Tua at this point. He definitely seems like he gets knocked around, and he just may not have the body to withstand the.
That was my only concern coming out of college was, I didn't like the injury. I mean, that was a terrible hip injury. But yeah, like I said, some guys they just always seem to be in the middle of pain.
Yep. Yeah, and your quarterback is not a guy you want always to be in the middle of pain. I mean, your bigger guys like Roethlisberger, can play through that kind of stuff, but Tua just isn't Roethlisberger as far as his size is concerned.
And speaking of injury prone, how about Carson Wentz?
Yes.
Two of your boys.
Carson Wentz is another guy. I mean, we really weren't on Carson Wentz. I mean, we looked at it and, we talked about it a little bit, but, we weren't really pushing Wentz. His stuff started to creep as soon as the trade got announced that he was going to the Colts. And, he's going to get a new shot and a new lease on his career and yada, yada. But, the back injury, the foot injury in preseason, now he has two
sprained ankles. He's riding a scooter around. He's in a boot.
Yeah, I mean, if the market is there for you to make any kind of money, if you're sitting on Wentz, and I'll let Bunk give his opinion, but in my opinion, just based on what we've seen over the last few years with him and his ability to stay on the field, it seems like it's the writing's on the wall to get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, and the only other counterpoint to that is, well, who's pushing him to start? I mean, are we really are the Colts? Is Colts upper management super high on Jacob Eason?
No, I mean, because if they were, then they wouldn't have brought Wentz in. But at the same time, if Wentz is hurt and can't play, it doesn't matter who they're high on, because eventually either they draft somebody else, or they just ride out the backup until they ride out the backup until the contract's over, or
Yeah.
or until whatever. I mean, it's just not somebody that I would want to get behind. I mean, right now his PSA 10 silver is at rookie is 307, which as far as PSA 10 rookie silvers are concerned is relatively cheap, but this thing has gotten all the way down to 150 in the past, and that was less than a year ago.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're not huge football analytical experts talking here. We were in both the Tua and Carson Wentz situations. We were talking about just that, the situation. So the situation in both those cases, Wentz with a fresh start in Indianapolis and the hype of Tua coming out of college, presented themselves with potentially very favorable buying investment situations.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, right now there's a little small channel, pricing channel that Wentz's cards have traded in between 320 and 500, and that was over the last 3 months. We're at the bottom of that again, and if he's going to miss any kind of time, I would have to imagine that thing breaks down below 300. So if you're a Colts guy looking to get a deal on Wentz potentially, or you're looking to look for other deals buying at lows, I would be looking at prices in the mid twos to low twos before I would look to buy in on Wentz. And same as any other card that he may have out there. I mean, his optic hollow PSA 10s are also 300, but there's next to no pops on these.
How are they still $300? Wentz rookie cards.
I mean, there's no pops on them. So the last one sold on September 9th, right before the season started, and that one went for 380. So I have to imagine when one of these surfaces and goes up for sale, it's not going to close for that much.
Yeah.
I mean, if you still have faith in Carson, I would give it two weeks and then see what's available and look for stuff in the twos. His optic hollows or his prism silvers, you should be able to pick those up in the twos. All right. I believe that is all we got for our investment stuff. Any other guys you got on your list or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm good in that department.
And we'll close with a question from the Peanut Gallery. Hey guys, love the show. Obviously, Tom Brady going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. Currently don't own any Brady rookie cards or much Brady at all. What cards can I potentially get into that are affordable, so that I can, grab these now before he retires and eventually goes into the Hall of Fame. So we actually had to dig for this one. Obviously most anything Tom Brady, anything, no matter what year, is expensive, and especially anything rookie. We did find a couple of rookie opportunities with, decent brands that weren't Michigan. There's a ton of Michigan stuff that you may be able to get at decent prices. So if you're a Michigan guy, you can look at some of his 2000 cards with Michigan uniform. But we found a couple rookies and a couple of other first in a series cards that you can look at. So first is a 2000 Fleer Tom Brady PSA 9, which you can get for about $250. The pops on that, hold on, Fleer, where'd it go? Okay, so it's 2000 Fleer Tradition PSA 9. Pop on that is $667. It's a dual card when he was a rookie and a no-name. So they put him on the card with Dave Stachelski, who was some tight end for the Patriots at the time. This thing peaked at $500 about 6 or 7 months ago, but it's been obviously steadily going up as we are into football season. So you can try to grab it for $250 to $300 now. 2000 Upper Deck Tom Brady PSA 7 is going for about $360. And then we have a 2012 Prism. And if you're thinking, why 2012? Well, 2012 was the first year for Prism. And then anytime a guy has, a player like Tom Brady that has a first year of anything, usually it goes for big bucks. So even the 10s for 2012 Prism PSA 10s are like $700 to $800. So we're looking at the 9s. The PSA 9s are going for $180. And the pops on these are it's $180, and the pop is $323. So still low pop, still an opportunity to get involved. The highs on this card were $630 back in August of last year. So definitely have some opportunities to see some increase in value. And then last but not least, 2002 Topps Chrome. That is his third year, correct?
2000, 2001, 2002.
Yes, thank you for the counting lesson, Sesame Street. So yes, third year Topps Chrome, first Topps Chrome card, BGS 9, $340. Or if you want to get it raw, you can get it raw for about $175. So it's not the usual flagship rookies for Brady, but if you're looking for something affordable, those are 4 cards that you can get for all under $400. If you're looking to get a piece of Brady, it seems to me that they're trying to get him some sort of record and or close out his potential final season with as high a stats as possible. This past week, anytime they were on even the 1 or 2 yard line, Brady was throwing the ball. They did not give the ball to the running backs inside the 5. Brady was throwing it every time. So it definitely seems to me that they may be trying to juice his stats up this year if this is potentially going to be his last year on the field.
I thought he was playing until he's 50.
Everybody wants to say that, but I have to imagine he wants to go out.
He says that.
Yeah, well, I have to imagine, though, he wants to go out on top. And if they win another Super Bowl, it's back-to-back Super Bowls, and he's 45 years old. I got to imagine he walks. At some point, he's got to hang it up.
Yeah, at this point, from a card perspective, it doesn't matter when he hangs it up. So
no,
get a piece of Brady any way you can.
Yeah, absolutely. if you're looking to get a piece of Brady, those are 4 ways to do it at a reasonable price, and got to imagine that stuff's going to go up. And that's why I said it looks like they're trying to get him as many touchdowns as they possibly can this year, which benefits the card market and it benefits my fantasy team.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to look at PSA 5, PSA 6, BGS 7s of even some of the higher end cards. I'm not afraid to look at those in this case. It's a Tom Brady rookie card.
Yeah.
I don't care what it's graded at that point.
Yep, absolutely. There's always a market for Brady. It's not a situation. Tom Brady can never step foot on a field again. He is still the greatest of all time. He will be treated that way. There will always be a market for him. So if you want a piece, get in wherever you can for whatever you can afford, and have to imagine that stuff continues to go up in value as time passes. Anything else you want to cover?
No, sir. I think we're good.
All right. As we said, we will be at the Philly show this weekend, and we'll look forward to giving you guys a rundown of that next week. If you have any questions you want to get in on the show, send us an email, info@sportscardadvantage.com, or hit us up on Instagram, sportscardadvtg. Happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. And then also, if you want to get in on the Fantasy Basketball League, also send us an email, info@sportscardadvantage.com. That is all for this week. We will see you next week.